We have a couple of people mentioning Brendan Sullivan to Iowa. Please check out the beginning of the live stream. We have covered that ground in regards to the Deacon Hill transfer portal entry and what could lie ahead for the Hawkeyes in their decisions and pursuits in that direction. They would be walking on thin ice if they do not address this in any way and go into next season with Cade McNamara as the starting quarterback and Marco Lyoness as the backup.
By the way, thank you, Hawkeye Bernie and T. Hank, for bringing it up. Kyler Casper is a name to watch. I have not had any conversations with Kyler or his camp. However, he has not broken through at Oregon. Now, maybe he ends up being on the two deeps. That's possible. But he's a guy common sense. I don't think there's any intel out there for sure that he's entering the portal. But Oregon doesn't play their spring game until Saturday. And, maybe once that spring game is over, he makes a decision to hop in the portal. I don't really think it makes a whole lot of sense for a person to hop in the portal before the spring game unless they're completely buried. Like Jacob Bostic did it, but why wouldn't you want to show off, especially if your game is nationally televised? I guess with Bostic, he's probably thinking, our game's not on TV anyways. Our practice isn't on television anyways. And by the way, I wanted to ask Kirk that question on Saturday. I've got to, I didn't ask him that question. I will at some point. I am curious on it, why Iowa doesn't televise the spring practice like every other school does. But Oregon, we'll see. That'd be a name to watch. Would he come to Iowa? Who knows? But he's a big body receiver. So if you're talking about, imagine adding, how about this for a tandem, Mark? Caleb Brown, Kyler Casper, and then this kid from Missouri State who's like 5'8". Like, talk about some, there's some serious difference in size with those three guys. Let's just say that. And then they're going to have a guy like Caden Weegan and Terrell Washington are going to be, I thought Saturday, both those guys looked like they're going to be on the two deeps at some point. I don't know. Maybe they won't show up on the two deeps, but I think they're both going to be used kind of Swiss Army knives in the offense. Both guys can probably be used out of the backfield. It'll be interesting to see how much Iowa uses a lot of motion. We saw that quite a bit on Saturday, that having guys with speed like Weegan, like Washington, like Brown will help in that regard. I think one of the reasons people were freaking out about this whole Kyler Casper thing is he did post on his Instagram story. He reposted Caleb Johnson's post from spring ball. And it was something like he had his fingers, it was like a finger crossed emoji, Kyler Casper. Why would he maybe he's friends with Caleb Johnson. Caleb's from Ohio. Kyler's from Arizona. Maybe they visited Iowa at the same time or know each other from some other place. But anyways, who do we want to follow after Saturday? Is the Oregon spring thing televised on a national network?
Technically, yes. In practicality, no. Meaning it's the Pac-12 network that nobody gets.
All right.
That I used to get, but yeah.
Why don't you get it anymore?
I moved.
Well, I would buy it. I would get it. I would invest in it because it's why? Wait a minute. Why
it's going to be defunct in about 3 weeks?
Why would the Pac-12 network be carrying Oregon spring game? They're not in the Pac-12.
This has been a discussion point. The Pac-12 is carrying all of their 2023 teams' spring games, USC included. All of them.
That's crazy. Why?
It is crazy. Because they can make as much money as possible. That's probably one of their last chances to recoup some portion of money rather than releasing those schools to the Big Ten network.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Big Ten network would love to show Oregon and USC's spring games.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure that's, I don't know, that's kept people subscribed to the Pac-12 network, but is there going to be a Pac-12 network once we hit July?
I don't believe so. I think so. It's shut down after softball and baseball season.
What will be the last thing they have on their network? Like, how does a network end? I don't think I've ever seen the end of a network or witnessed that. How does a network end? Does somebody sign off? Like, how does that work?
If they could give me some kind of guarantee of a basement of audience, I would be more than happy to take an hour to close down the network and give my appraisal of how that conference was run for the past 10 or 15 years.
But correct me if I'm wrong, there still is going to be a championship game between Washington State and Oregon State.
They're playing in the regular season.
Okay, but that's not on Pac-12 network because there's no Pac. So what network is that going to be on?
I don't know how they would play a championship game.
Well, isn't the Pac-12 still technically in existence?
It is.
Okay, that's not. That's what I'm saying. I'm curious how what channel I'm assuming like ESPN will pick that up or some random network will actually pick it up, or they already have
some random network,
some ESPN or some random network.
Okay, Oregon State and Washington State play the second to last week of the season.
Okay.
So it's a regularly scheduled game. I wouldn't think that they would need to play again. But maybe as a technicality, they will play for the Pac-12 championship.
What?
For one game.
I hope not. That would be so pathetic. That would be so pathetic if that happens. Let's hope it doesn't. So what is the Pac-12? Can the Pac-12, is there no, you've talked about realignment a lot more than I have, is there just no survival of the Pac-12? Can't they just grab a bunch of Mountain West teams, or is the Mountain West just that much more valuable now than the Pac-12?
So the end result, whether the Pac-12, Pac-2 would technically grab all those Mountain West programs and bring them into their framework or vice versa, the end result is the same collection of programs. So since the Mountain West is healthy and thriving and established, I would think that those schools are not going to, of course, 2 years ago, those schools would have loved to have been wined and dined by the Pac-12 at the time to go join that league. But why would you join? The end result's the same thing. So I would think that just the Mountain West is going to just survive, and
it would come down to legalities, right?
Yeah.
So
there are legalities going on all over the place. The ACC is in court practically every couple of days against Clemson and Florida State in 4 different locations right now. And the Big Ten may be the beneficiary of that. We shall see. We've got a Nebraska live show coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So in just about a half hour, Justin Adams and myself get together. And also, I wanted to highlight that Steve Dace is stopping by on Wednesday at 4. So that's 4 Eastern on the main channel to talk about who knows what. I'm sure Michigan and other items.
I'm sure Steve can figure out something to talk about.
Oh, yes. He never's short on words. But they're usually pretty wise. So we enjoy talking to Steve. It's always a good time. People show up for that. If they don't show up for me, they show up for Steve. So, all right, Corey, what's going on there at the from the Hawkeye of the Storm?
I did post a video, kind of my breakdown of the Deacon Hill decision. If anybody's curious to watch that over on the channel, I'll be posting a Cale Vanderbush video, likely sometime in the next probably 12 to 18 hours. I can't guarantee it tonight, but that brings us down to 87 scholarships, as I mentioned earlier. And then we'll see if anybody else enters the portal. So I guess just keep it locked in, have notifications turned on so you know when people are entering the portal or visiting Iowa. We'll see how this visit from this young man from Missouri State, this wide receiver, goes. Raylan Sharp. And we'll have a podcast here soon too with a future football player who will be joining Iowa in the summer.
As we bid adieu to Deacon Hill, my question to you, what was Deacon Hill's greatest moment as a Hawkeye?
He made it. Well, I don't know if I could pin it down to one. He made a couple of nice plays. One might have been, I just wouldn't be able to tell you what game it was. Maybe against Michigan State at home, where he was going to go down for the sack. And I believe he shoveled the ball with his hand on the ground to keep his body up and shoveled the ball for a completion to avoid the sack. And I made it clear. That's one thing I really appreciated about Deacon Hill, Mark. Say what you want about Deacon Hill's accuracy, whatnot. Not only was he a really good leader, but I do think he was tougher on the. He demonstrated better toughness than Spencer Petras had at Iowa. Like, yeah, he fumbled the ball at times, but Spencer would go down for anything. And I thought Deacon, I mean, big guy, right? But I thought he was tough. He got hit in the mouth, Mark. I mean, that line wasn't good last year either. He got hit in the mouth. What did he do? He always popped back up. So I got respect for Deacon Hill from that standpoint. And he's a tough guy and filled a role when Iowa desperately needed a warm body. And I wish him all the best going forward.
His best game statistically was the Rutgers game. 20 of 31, 223 yards, a touchdown, and a pick.
Well, that's an outlier. 221 yards. That's a lot, Mark. 221 yards for an Iowa quarterback. What was his lowest output? Was it like 20 yards?
So in terms of games he started, well, you got the Tennessee game, 56 yards. Nebraska 94, Northwestern 66, Wisconsin 6 of 14, 37 yards.
There it is.
That's it.
Maybe Iowa was like, during that game, they were like looking at the Northwestern sideline and saying, "There's Brendan Sullivan. We wish we had him right now." That might have happened. That game was
I remember you making the point, and it sounded ridiculous when it first came out of your mouth, but then I thought, okay, he's right. He is right. When you said during that Wisconsin game, it got to a point where Iowa just didn't even want to get the first down.
Well,
just get off the field on third down and punt.
Yes, that's what the offense is at times. And it was at that game where I finally came to the realization that Kirk actually knows what he's doing here. Oh, it's ridiculous that he had to do it. But like, I finally understood, okay, Kirk actually is doing the logical thing given the circumstances. It's ridiculous that we're in these circumstances, but he's doing the logical thing because we're not capable of doing anything else.
Yes. There's a greater chance that they're going to turn over the ball and do something that Wisconsin's going to score than they are going to score themselves.
And remember, Iowa won that game up in Madison. That was a good win. Best win of the season, Mark, I think.
Yep. Yeah. The Michigan State might have been the most exciting game.
Iowa State was also in the running for best game of the season. That was a good win on the road, and that was before Cade went down.
He threw for 120 against Michigan, but threw it up there 32 times. So that's a lot of attempts to get 120 yards.
Yes, it is.